Good afternoon, everyone, because this story just took another turn, and this time, it's not rumors, it's not blind items, it's not anonymous sources close to the situation. We're talking about text messages that were reportedly included in court filings, communications that allegedly show how Justin Baldoni and his team discussed handling the sudden social media unfollowing a moment that set the internet on fire. And if you thought the unfollowing was petty Hollywood drama? According to what's been publicly described, it was treated like a strategic situation, and now let's slow this down and separate emotion from documentation. In the ongoing legal dispute between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni tied to the film project at the center of their lawsuit, both sides have been filing motions and counter-motions. As part of those filings, certain communications, including text messages, have reportedly been referenced or submitted. These texts allegedly show internal conversations about how to respond when social media activity began, signaling that something was wrong. The unfollowing a moment, which fans immediately clocked, became one of the earliest public indicators that there was tension behind the scenes. Social media activity, especially among celebrities, is rarely random. When key people connected to a project suddenly stop following each other, the internet notices. And it did. According to descriptions of the newly revealed messages in court documents, Baldoni and his team allegedly discussed how to manage the optics of that social media shift. Not escalate it. Not ignore it. Manage it. That's important because one of the narratives that has floated online is that Baldoni was blindsided by the public fallout. But if these communications are accurately represented in filings, it suggests something different, that his team was actively strategizing how to handle the situation once it became visible. And now, what does war plan actually mean here? Let's be clear, that's a dramatic framing. What the filings reportedly describe is a coordinated approach to PR and messaging. That includes internal conversations about press strategy, timing, and response. That is standard in high-profile disputes. Especially when a film, a studio, and reputations are involved. And here's where this gets even more layered. The unfollowing didn't happen in a vacuum. It came amid reports of on-set tensions, disagreements over creative direction, and later, formal legal action. Once lawyers enter the chat, everything changes. Every public move can be interpreted as signaling. Every silence can be interpreted as strategy. So when the social media shift happened, it wasn't just gossip, it became potential evidence of a fractured professional relationship. According to what has been publicly discussed about the text exchanges, Baldoni's side appeared focused on stabilizing the situation, ensuring that messaging stayed consistent and that any public narrative didn't spiral beyond control. Again, that's not unusual in Hollywood. But in the context of a lawsuit alleging serious misconduct and counter-allegations disputing those claims, it takes on new meaning, because one of the big questions in this case is, who controlled the narrative first? If one side can show documented efforts to maintain professionalism and manage optics responsibly, that matters. If the other side can show those efforts were reactive damage control, that also matters. That's why these texts are significant, not because they prove guilt or innocence, but because they show awareness that the public was watching, awareness that perception could impact legal positioning, awareness that social media actions were being interpreted as statements. And let's talk about timing. The unfollowing reportedly occurred before the full legal dispute became public knowledge. That means insiders likely knew tensions were escalating before the audience did. The public only sees the explosion. The filings suggest there were private conversations happening long before headlines dropped. Now, does this confirm wrongdoing? No. Does it confirm there was strategic communication happening? Based on what has been described in filings, yes, and in high-stakes entertainment disputes, strategy is everything. What makes this especially interesting is how modern celebrity conflict now unfolds in two arenas simultaneously, the courtroom and the algorithm. Legal filings move through judges. Social signals move through fans. And sometimes, one fuels the other. If Baldoni's team was indeed coordinating how to handle the optics of social media fallout, that suggests they understood how quickly narrative can calcify online. Once fans decide someone is the villain, reversing that perception becomes nearly impossible. But here's the twist: managing optics is not the same thing as manufacturing a narrative. The distinction between proactive PR and reactive damage control is going to be central in how this entire case is interpreted moving forward, because in court, intention matters, and in public opinion, Timing matters. So Part 1 takeaway: the newly referenced texts, as described in court-related reporting, don't show chaos. They show calculation. They show awareness that something was shifting publicly. And they show that social media, once considered trivial, is now treated as a serious reputational battleground in Hollywood disputes. This case isn't just about what happened on set. It's about who prepared for the fallout, and when. And if you think this is just about unfollowing drama, wait until we get into what the texts allegedly say about internal expectations regarding public reaction, because that's where this moves from optics to positioning. Alright, let's pick this up exactly where we left off. We talked about how the newly referenced text messages, as described in publicly reported court filings, suggest there was awareness on Baldoni's side that the social media unfollowing moment wasn't just random internet chatter. It was optics. It was perception. It was narrative formation in real time. Now here's where it gets more layered. According to reporting surrounding the filings, some of the internal discussions allegedly referenced anticipation of public reaction. Not panic. Not outrage. Anticipation. That's a key distinction. Because in high-profile disputes, especially those involving A-list talent and major studios, teams don't just react to headlines, they model them. If these descriptions are accurate, Baldoni's team appeared to be thinking several steps ahead. How will this look? Who will speak first? Does silence help or hurt? What does engagement signal? What does disengagement signal? And remember, at this stage, the broader public didn't yet have the full legal narrative. What they had were digital breadcrumbs. An unfollow here. A shift in promotion there. A subtle change in tone. Social media is no longer casual for celebrities. It is curated, monitored, and often coordinated with PR and legal counsel. So when something changes, especially during a tense production cycle, it's rarely accidental. Now let's be very clear, having a communication strategy does not equal guilt. It equals caution. Especially when legal action is looming or anticipated. Any experienced legal team will advise clients to tighten messaging, document communications, and avoid emotional reactions that could later be misinterpreted. And this is where the war plan framing becomes more metaphorical than literal. What appears in these filings, based on reporting, is structured PR coordination. That can include drafting statements in advance, preparing for possible allegations, aligning messaging between representatives, and tracking online response. In today's media ecosystem, that's standard practice. But here's the tension point. One of the narratives that has circulated publicly is that Baldoni was caught off guard by the scale of backlash once allegations surfaced. If internal messages show early strategic positioning before public escalation, that could challenge the idea that everything unfolded spontaneously. It suggests there was recognition that conflict was escalating well before it exploded into headlines, and that matters legally because lawsuits often hinge on timeline. Who knew what, and when? Who anticipated conflict? Who documented concerns? Who sought legal guidance first? These are not minor details, they shape credibility. If one side demonstrates they were calmly organizing communications while the other side later frames events as sudden or chaotic, that contrast can become part of the broader narrative battle. But there's another angle here too. Strategizing about optics doesn't necessarily mean preparing for wrongdoing. It can also mean preparing to defend against anticipated claims. In contentious productions, especially when creative disagreements and contractual disputes overlap, it's common for both sides to brace for potential escalation. The entertainment industry runs on reputation. Studios invest millions not just in projects but in public trust. A single viral narrative can impact box office performance, distribution deals, and future casting opportunities. So when the unfollowing happened, it wasn't just personal. It had business implications. If fans begin speculating that co-stars are feuding, that affects marketing campaigns. If cast unity appears fractured, promotional tours become complicated. If rumors spread unchecked, they can snowball into assumptions. From a strategic standpoint, monitoring and managing that risk is expected. Now here's the modern reality: courts move slowly. Social media moves instantly. And in cases like this, both sides are fighting two battles at once, one in filings and one in feeds. The texts reportedly referenced in court don't resolve the central allegations of the lawsuit. They don't determine liability. But they do add texture to the timeline. They show that at least one side understood early on that perception was becoming part of the dispute, and here's why that's powerful, because perception can influence everything from settlement leverage to jury pool bias to future career trajectory. Even if a case never reaches trial, public opinion often reaches a verdict long before a judge does. So if Baldoni's team was indeed preparing messaging strategy during the unfollowing phase, that suggests they were treating the situation as serious long before the public fully grasped it. That doesn't make anyone right. It doesn't make anyone wrong. But it does indicate this wasn't impulsive chaos. It was controlled response, and in Hollywood legal conflicts, control is currency. As this case continues unfolding, more documents may surface, more context may emerge, and more interpretations will compete. But what these alleged texts underscore is something bigger than one unfollow. They highlight how celebrity disputes are no longer private disagreements, they are media events, they are strategic campaigns, they are reputation chess matches played in real time, and whether this ultimately ends in settlement or courtroom confrontation, one thing is clear. Both sides understand that narrative management is now inseparable from legal defense. We'll continue tracking only what's confirmed in filings and public statements, because in a case this visible, facts matter more than framing. If new documents drop, we break them down. Stay tuned.